June 22, 1941, Eastern Europe. At dawn, the German invasion of the Soviet Union begins, stretching the front from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. In the Baltic states, German forces advance rapidly. Behind the regular troops follow the mobile killing units of Einsatzgruppe A, whose mission is brutally clear from the very first hours: to hunt down and murder Jews, communists, and anyone deemed an enemy. The campaign moves with horrifying speed. In Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, shooting pits are filled within days. In the Latvian city of Liepāja, where German forces push toward a strategic naval base on the Baltic coast, terror erupts almost immediately. Einsatzgruppe A, along with its subordinate units, arrests civilians, seizes control of the streets, and carries out systematic executions. Local collaborators join the Germans, and within weeks, mass killings become a daily reality. By the end of 1941, around 5,000 Jewish men, women, and children in Liepāja have been murdered. However, these atrocities would not go unpunished, and the perpetrators would eventually face justice. Liepāja, a coastal city in western Latvia, was of strategic importance to Nazi Germany, a naval base and a critical point on the Baltic coast. The occupiers sought complete control over both the city and its population. Suspecting that Liepāja harbored communists, Jews, and other supposed enemies of the Reich, they decided to eliminate anyone they considered a threat. The first killings began even before the Germans fully secured the city. In the nearby town of Grobinja, members of an Einsatzgruppe, a mobile German killing unit, murdered 6 Jews in the church graveyard on the very first night of the Soviet invasion. Random shootings continued in the following days as German soldiers, acting independently or under vague orders, dragged Jewish men from the streets and executed them on the spot, sometimes using bomb craters as improvised execution sites. The killings became increasingly organized after German forces captured Liepāja on June 29, 1941, when Kommando units entered the city and established their headquarters at the Hotel St. Petersburg. The Germans quickly began using trenches previously dug by Soviet troops in Rhinus Park, in the city center, as execution grounds. On July 3rd and 4th, 1941, hundreds of Jews were rounded up, marched to the trenches, and shot. Their bodies were buried in these pits, only to be followed by subsequent groups of victims brought to the same sites. At the same time, Liepāja's new German authorities issued their first decrees. The city fell under the control of the German Navy, and the local commandant declared that for every act of sabotage, 10 civilians would be executed as hostages. Soon after, strict anti-Jewish regulations were imposed. Jews were forced to wear yellow stars on the front and back of their clothing, could shop only during fixed 2-hour periods, and were forbidden from using public transport, attending public events, or even walking on the beach. They were required to step off the pavement whenever a German in uniform passed by. Jewish-owned shops were marked with signs reading "Jewish-owned business," and radios, typewriters, and vehicles were confiscated. The process of segregation, humiliation, and extermination had begun. Throughout July 1941, the killings became systematic. Erhard Graul, commander of a detachment from Einsatzkommando, took control of the women's prison in Liepāja and converted it into a detention center for civilians targeted by the Nazi regime. Graul ordered the execution of hostages, claiming they were reprisals for alleged attacks on German patrols. On July 7, 1941, approximately 30 Jews and communists were executed on the beach near the lighthouse outside the city. When Graul's superior, Franz Walter Stahlecker, leader of Einsatzgruppe A,
accused him of not killing people quickly enough. Larger massacres soon followed. Groll was eventually replaced by Wolfgang Kugler, under whose command the systematic executions intensified.
Under Wolfgang Kugler's command, the murders continued. At the end of July, the infamous Arājs Kommando, a Latvian auxiliary unit trained in Riga, arrived to assist the Germans in their campaign of mass killings. Working alongside the SS, they murdered around 900 Jews in just 2 days. The largest massacre in Liepāja occurred in mid-December 1941 at Skede, north of the city. The operation was led by Kugler, with assistance from Latvian guards. On December 13, 1941, a notice appeared in the local newspaper instructing all Jews to remain in their homes for 2 days. That night, Latvian police began arresting residents, and the prison courtyard soon overflowed with men, women, and children. From there, the victims were marched to the dunes at Skede, where a long trench, approximately 100 meters long and 3 meters wide, had been dug. At dawn on December 15, 1941, the shootings began. Victims were brought to a barn near the beach, ordered to undress, and driven toward the pit. German and Latvian guards beat those who hesitated, while SS officers whipped the prisoners to keep them moving. At the edge of the trench, victims were shot in groups of 10. After each volley, a German officer walked along the pit, firing finishing shots into anyone still alive. Behind him, a kicker, often a Latvian policeman, pushed or rolled bodies into the trench. The massacre lasted 3 days. By the evening of December 17, 1941, 2,731 Jews and 23 communists had been murdered. The shootings at Skede are among the few Holocaust crimes in Latvia captured on camera and remain the only known surviving film footage of Einsatzgruppe mass executions. By June 1942, Liepāja's Jewish community had been almost entirely exterminated. Of the roughly 5,700 Jews who had lived in the city before the German invasion, only about 814 survived. The survivors were confined to a small ghetto of 11 houses and forced into hard labor for the German Navy and occupying authorities. Hunger, cold, exhausting work, and disease killed many. In October 1943, on Yom Kippur, one of the holiest days in Judaism, the ghetto was liquidated. The last remaining Jews were deported to Riga, the capital of Latvia, and only a handful of them survived the war. In 1943, as the Second World War, launched by Germany on the 1st of September 1939, turned decisively against the Nazis, they returned to the shooting sites in an attempt to conceal their crimes. They poured chlorine over the corpses to hasten decomposition. Yet, the photographs, the film footage, and the prints preserved by David Zivkon ensured that the massacre could never be erased. A number of the perpetrators responsible for the mass shootings in and around Liepāja were punished, through death during the war, execution after it, or prison sentences handed down by post-war courts. Franz Stahlecker, head of Einsatzgruppe A and one of the main architects of mass murder in Latvia, was killed by Soviet partisans in March 1942. Fritz Dietrich, the police chief involved in organizing the December 1941 massacre, was captured after the war, tried by an American military tribunal for ordering the execution of captured American airmen, and hanged at Landsberg prison in 1948. Wolfgang Kugler, the SS officer who directed much of the killing in Liepāja, was sentenced in an early post-war trial to be fined and spent a short time in prison. When additional evidence of his role emerged in 1959, he was arrested once more, and before facing trial again, he hanged himself. Hans Baumgartner, responsible for mass deportations and shootings of Jews and other civilians in Latvia, was arrested in East Germany in 1969. His trial established his role in the murder of more than 6,000 people
and he was sentenced to death and executed by shooting in Leipzig in 1971. Latvian collaborators also faced judicial reckoning.
Viktors Arājs, the commander of the Arājs Kommando, was finally tried in Hamburg in 1979. His central role in mass executions, including those in Liepāja, was fully established, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment, dying in prison in 1988. Soviet courts likewise prosecuted members of his unit after the end of the war and sentenced 30 men to death for their roles in the mass shootings of the civilian population. Karl Emil Strott, a member of the SS who took pictures of the victims during the executions at Skede, received a 7-year sentence in prison. With the entrance of the Red Army to Liepāja and its liberation on 9 May 1945, approximately 20 Jews were found in the city. Some of them had fled and survived. Some had found shelter with Latvian acquaintances. Some had acquired forged Christian identification papers. And 11 Jews had hidden in a basement in the area of the Ghetto on the night before its liquidation. They had remained there for a year and a half until liberation, with the help of righteous among the nations Robert Seduls and his wife Johanna. After the war, the city of Liepāja itself changed a lot. Under Soviet rule, it was closed to outsiders as a naval base and nuclear weapon storage facility, and the memory of the massacres faded into silence. Only in the late 20th century did historians reconstruct the full sequence of events. Local memorials were erected near the dunes where the largest shootings took place, and on Liepāja Cemetery. The photographs of the December 1941 executions, showing the last moments of victims on the cold Baltic shore, became enduring symbols of the destruction of an entire community and a lasting reminder of the vibrant society that fell victim to the brutal and murderous regime of Nazi Germany and its local collaborators. Before we end today's story, take a look at worldhistory.tv, your special destination for true history lovers. Discover exclusive documentaries and incredible stories you won't find anywhere else. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.